And welcome everybody to our show, our introductory show, to which I don't have a name for yet, Coach, but I'm very proud to introduce to you all and the television audience and our first actual meeting myself with the new head coach of the Wildcats, Coach Derek Rang. And Coach, first of all, welcome to Oak Ridge. And your first impressions, I know you grew up around the East Tennessee area, but your first impressions of Oak Ridge as you've gotten to know, I guess, you haven't been here much, but just the people that you have met here.
Oh, it's been awesome. I mean, and I guess for me growing up in Maryville, there was a lot of kind of crossover, playing some travel baseball or just playing some baseball. And when I was at Maryville High School playing football, we used to scrimmage Oak Ridge every fall. Mm-hmm. So I've scrimmaged out there or on the practice field, around the track, and so it's everything you'd expect. Great community support. Everybody's been so positive, which this is the honeymoon period right here because, we've not played a football game yet, but everybody's been supportive, and everybody that's reached out, you just appreciate it and look forward to it.
What I want to do on our show today here is get to know you first, mm-hmm. just all about you actually, and then we'll talk about football at some point, and then we'll talk about your philosophies and such. But you mentioned that you grew up in the Maryville area. Let's go all the way very back. Were you born in Maryville?
No, I was actually born in Illinois. So. Okay. I was born in Illinois, and that's where my mom and dad were from, and they ended up. My dad went back to school when I was a young child and got his degree in engineering, mm-hmm. and he works in the automotive industry. So we ended up living in Illinois, and then we actually moved down to Franklin County, there's a little town called Estill Springs in the Winchester area. So we lived there from, I guess, kindergarten through fourth grade. Mm-hmm. And then when I was in the fifth grade, my dad's job transferred him to Maryville. So I guess middle school and high school for me was Maryville. So that's kind of, I guess, the place I kind of call home. My parents kind of call Illinois home. So, transitioned to Maryville, and that's where I went to middle school and high school.
Well, let me ask you, when did you first get the love of football?
When I moved to Maryville, I never played football until I guess I was 11 years old, and I was more of a baseball player growing up as far as that goes. And it was kind of funny. We were in Maryville looking for a house, and the realtor told my mom and dad, football's kind of a big deal here, so you ought to get your son playing football. And I went and as an 11-year-old and played for the Little Rebs and just loved it.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question here. Mm-hmm. I know you interviewed with our athletic director, Coach Gaddis, who's a diehard Yankees fan.
Oh, yeah.
Are you a Cubs fan, or what's your team?
No, me and Coach Gaddis, we had extensive talks about that, but I'm a Cardinal fan.
Cardinal?
Well, so St. Louis Cardinals. So that was I guess a plus for Coach Gaddis. I wasn't a Red Sox fan or Cubs fan or whatever, but so I've been a Cardinal fan my whole life in baseball.
Yeah, he doesn't much care for anybody in the American League, but the National League he can tolerate, except the Dodgers. I don't know if you've had that discussion with him.
Well, I mean, I guess for me, when we moved to Tennessee, it was all Braves fans. Mm-hmm. Back then, it was in the 90s. You had, Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox, and the Braves were on their run of whatever. And I just recall I was always a Cardinal fan. So I go to school and get made fun of. Because there was one year the Cardinals and Braves played a couple of playoff series in the 90s, and everybody kind of let me have it, whatever. But as far as American League teams, we didn't really talk about that a whole lot.
Right.
And I guess now with the Dodgers, they're kind of the new team that's going to spend all the money and get the best players. So, but I guess right now I probably don't follow baseball as much as I used to.
Coach, you hired a guy that doesn't follow baseball. We're going to have to work on that, actually. So you enjoyed baseball mm-hmm. playing it first, or then how did the football part of it just?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I played baseball all the way through high school too. Mm-hmm. So basketball was never really my thing. I wasn't really too tall, or really didn't have a lot of skill there. But I guess for me in football, I guess it was just the competition part of it. Just the drive to be good. I mean, just the teamwork part of it, and just the physicality part of it. I just kind of liked the contact, and some kids don't like that, and some kids do, and I just kind of liked the intense nature of it, I guess.
So you played for George Quarles mm-hmm. at Maryville High School. You were part of, I guess, 3 state mm-hmm. championships. Yeah. Talk about your high school experience and playing for Coach Quarles.
Well, I mean, I think when you're playing, you just don't really know what you're, from a standpoint of what you're doing. But Coach Quarles was hired during my freshman year, and that was kind of back in the day, when your freshman team was kind of separate from your varsity. So, like, we didn't even really dress out on Friday nights as freshmen. We just went to the games as normal students. And then when the playoffs started, you had the option to move up. So we kind of moved up, and then the freshmen kind of turned into the scout team in the playoffs because you had new players out there. And then the next 3 years, what was funny was my sophomore year was the year we started 0-4. And everybody was, wanting Coach Quarles fired or wanting him, you know the way it is. And then we rattled off a bunch of wins and won a state championship. And then I guess my junior and senior year, when I moved to Maryville when I was 11, there was always an athletic group that I kind of moved in there with. And we kind of knew just as a group we were going to be really good our junior and senior year. We were able to, I think, go 29-1 my junior and senior year. And one thing you learn from Coach is you learn how to execute as far as the details of offensive football. Even though I was a defensive player, Coach Gaylor, who's a familiar name in this county,
Jimmy
Gaylor, former Clinton head coach, was our defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. And I felt like he was really intense and hard on us. And you just had a bunch of guys that wanted to give it all they had every night. And I think just the power of teamwork and the power of discipline and I guess just doing the little things right. That was one thing you really learned, was just how precise everything should be every snap. And, you had some talent to that, and it just was a good mix to be successful.
One of the things that I did before when I was finding out that I was going to be interviewing you today, I asked some people to give me some ideas for some questions. And I've got my own questions, as Coach will tell you. I have an endless amount of questions, but I'm going to kind of push some of those in there as you're talking, and you kind of sparked one of the things I got. You said you came to Maryville when you were 11. One of the things that we've been told for years that in Maryville, from the young time all the way up to high school, basically the terminology and everything is about the same at every level.
Yeah.
Is that something that you would like to get done here?
Well, I don't know so much the terminology was the same. One thing I think helped out down there was you didn't have parents coaching the youth leagues. So you just had guys that would do what was right. And I think that, you learn how to, the kids, there were two different, organizations. You kind of had the Rebs and the Bears. And then the guys that were coaching those leagues, they were just guys that liked football. And that just to teach, fundamentals, and the best players played. And you kind of start to have the competition at a young age. And then once you get into middle school, then you kind of had some carryover from maybe some terminology stuff, offensive system, defensive system. But, you get in middle school, now you have more competition because you have the whole Rebs group merging with the Bears group. And then you just kind of, breeds competition. And, but it was streamlined. I don't know how it is now, but just back then, it may have been more at the younger ages, more about fundamentals. And just because, if you give a kid a bad experience at a young age playing football, that can really discourage them for a long time. So they kind of made everything, fundamental and competitive and fun. And I remember, when I was a kid, 11 years old, we'd be running sprints after practice, so you're kind of learning the work ethic at a young age. And, that's just kind of, but yeah, it was definitely streamlined to where it was a good recipe. And that's one thing I think for me is just to get involved in the community, to kind of get involved with the youth football organizations here in Oak Ridge based off, every community kind of does it a little bit different now. Some communities have a strong flag program that kind of transitions into contact. Some have, contact at a very young age. So it's just a matter of trying to figure out how it's structured here and organized here and just be a part of it and show it support.
One of the advantages I think that we've had over the years is having two middle schools in town here, which obviously gives, there's a lot of small communities like Oak Ridge. I consider Oak Ridge to be a small community. They have one school, but the two, you get two separate teams that have the opportunity to get more players involved. Obviously, you'll be dealing with the middle school coaches as well. What kind of involvement with them will you have?
Basically what my goal would be from the middle school standpoint is obviously that I think you're right. It's a good point that you have two programs. So what you have is you have Robertsville, you have Jefferson. It was funny, when I was in middle school, Robertsville was really, really good. They had phenomenal athletes, and Jefferson was not as strong. I don't know how the makeup is now.
It goes back and forth.
Yeah. So I don't know the familiarity of it now, but definitely want to get with their staffs and just kind of say, hey, here's kind of what we're doing on offense, defense, fundamentally. We want, my thing is, I think from a program standpoint, we want to develop quarterbacks here first and foremost. So I think if, those guys can start that process and you get a couple guys coming in that want to compete, that's what I think's made Maryville so good is they've had so many good quarterbacks come through. Mm-hmm. And with the style of offense we want to run, the quarterback position is going to be critical. So I think that's one thing, just kind of get with those guys and kind of figure out, hey, here's some of the quarterback stuff that we're doing. Here's some of the fundamental stuff that we're doing. And then ultimately, those guys are going to have to take their players and do what's best to be successful. So, but I think there's just some philosophical stuff that we can do with them and then kind of streamline that down. And we just look forward to meeting the staffs and working with the coaches here at Jefferson and Robertsville.
Coach, I'm gonna come back and talk more about philosophy. We want to continue on with your personal life, your personal careers here.
Yeah.
So you graduated from high school, and I believe you went to Maryville College.
Exactly, yeah.
Talk about that.
I really wasn't wanting to play collegiate athletics when I finished up, high school. And Maryville College had a new football coach come in, Coach Tony Iruli, and he was brand new from Pennsylvania. Now, he was also an alum, but I was kind of going to go to Middle Tennessee State and just be a student and just kind of live the college life. And he kind of come in, and my mom had a couple connections to Maryville College as far as in the athletic department. And Coach Iruli come in, kind of recruited me a little bit and said, hey, just why don't you give college football a shot? And my parents were like, just try it for 1 year and see if you like it. And if you don't, you can, go off and to MTSU or wherever and be a student. And I just loved it. So was able to play a lot as a freshman. It was kind of a rebuilding situation. And so, it was fun. And just kind of fell in love with the game again at the collegiate level. It was a little bit more, intense from a standpoint of the schemes that we were looking at. And, at that point, kind of figured out, hey, maybe I want to coach this and stay involved in football.
What position did you play at high school and
Pretty much in high school, I was a linebacker. Back in Maryville High School, we kind of had enough to where we could, you kind of use that word platoon, but we were able to, back then, play a skill position guys both sides of the ball. But your linebackers, defensive line just played defense. And then it was kind of funny, I was a starting linebacker for 2 years in high school and like a backup guard. Because we had some good skill players then. And but in college, I just played full-time outside linebacker in like a 4-3 defense.
So you're kind of a defensive player.
Yeah.
But I understand you like to call your plays and such. So is that something you're going to be doing here?
Well, we're still kind of going through that process, but it's kind of funny whenever I was always a defensive coach as a younger coach, and then when I was hired on at Powell as the head coach in 2012, Coach Lowe was the only coach who resigned from the position, which Coach Lowe's now back at Powell, but I had to be Coach Lowe, so I had to learn offense and call the plays because nobody at that point on staff wanted to call plays, and I've kind of found out now coming to Oak Ridge, there's a lot of people across the state who they want to come call plays, so it's kind of been funny. So I kind of learned offense on the run as a young head coach, which is not a recipe for success, but we were able to make it work. We were close to going to a state championship game, and obviously, a situation happened there, but yeah, that's when I started doing offensive football.
Coach, we're going to take a break here, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to start talking about where you've been coaching at every level. And we appreciate you watching our show here. This is our first introductory show with Coach Derek Rang, the new head coach. I believe he's the 13th head coach. We've had 14 different coaches, but one of them came back a second time. So 13 total humans have been the coach at Oak Ridge High School since 1943. We are going to take a break. We'll be back with more with Coach Rang in a moment.
Everything we do is in search of more go. If it can withstand 0 degrees, can it go -20? If it can run through 5 inches of water per hour, can it go to 6? We go. So it goes. So you can go. It's hard to stop a train.
Fox Insurance Group is a local agency. We've got a great staff. We're knowledgeable. The most rewarding thing about working in insurance is taking care of customers. When they come in, a lot of times they don't know what coverages they need. They're relying on us to give them the right coverage that's going to fit their needs, but also at a competitive price. Anybody can go to any agent or they can call any 1-800 number. But getting that right agent that's going to take care of them and be there in time of need, and that's what we're here to do.
Daniel Forrester has been recognized as one of East Tennessee's leading attorneys for nearly 2 decades. Civil disputes, criminal defense, divorces, and juvenile custody cases are all part of an impressive resume. Daniel's legal experience also includes representing clients in local, state, and federal courts. A husband and a father, Daniel is a Rule 31 certified mediator who has represented hundreds of families in Chancery Court. Call Daniel Forrester Law Office at 865-457-7900 for a free consultation.
We're always moving. Scratch that. We're always moving forward. But forward can sometimes look a little backwards. Or like circles. Or like nothing at all. But we never stop. We never stop. Because life never stops. It's hard to stop a train.
Train extreme conditions testing. It's hard to stop a train. Really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling.
Welcome back to our show here. We thank you for watching our introductory show with Coach Derek Rang, new head coach of the Wildcats. Just got hired, I guess, this week. We're taping this on Thursday, and you're meeting the team. This is going to play on Friday night.
Yeah.
So you have met the team, at least when they're watching this. But I know you're excited about that. You're going to get a chance to meet our guys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's going to be the good part is the first meeting, you're just trying to let the kids know who you are, some of the core values that you have as a coach. I guess stylistically what you want to look like on offense, defense, and special teams. And then you just kind of want to outline your expectations for what Oak Ridge football is going to be moving forward. And then the biggest thing is once you get here and meet the kids every day, interact with them every day, that's when you start developing the relationships. And that's one thing that we really, or that I want to spend a lot of time with is the senior class. Because this will be the third head coach they've had in 3 years.
Right.
And when you look at that, that can be salvaged if the kids, buy into the vision right away. We know there's going to be a fall. We know, obviously, we're in a smaller region this year, but there's a chance for this team next year to do some great things. So we want to make sure they understand that and that we're in this together and we're pulling in the same direction. So it'll be fun to actually, meet the kids on a full-time basis.
Coach, I've looked at your resume, your coaching resume, and I'll let you go through that. Where did you start? Where was your first coaching?
Yeah, basically, for me, I started out coaching at Anderson County High School just down the road with Coach Kerr his last couple of years, and then moved on to be a defensive coordinator at South Dual for 1 year. Then I moved on.
Was that with Coach Duncan?
Coach Duncan, yes.
Okay.
I went with Coach Duncan at South Dual, and his first year coming back into coaching. So he was a coach at Powell them years and went into administration for 8 or 9 years. Then got back into coaching and was then recruited to West at 2 years as a defensive coordinator, and that's where I felt like we had a lot of success on the field. We went, a couple, I guess the best year in school history, semifinal appearance, and then did it again. And then I guess I kind of got a little greedy and wanted to be a head coach. So, got the Powell position in 2012, and I guess ever since then, had the Powell position in 2012, then went to Carson Newman, had a situation come up, went to Carson Newman as a GA, and then wanted to get back into head coaching. So that's kind of where, I guess my career path takes a unique turn. I was able to take the head coaching position at Dresden High School, which is out in Northwest Tennessee. Didn't really know anybody out there, but I needed to, obviously wanted to get back into high school head coaching, and they kind of they wanted a coach that offensive minded, because I've been working offense still, so wanted an offensive minded coach, and I just went out there and we had a lot of success. We had a really good quarterback, and we practiced really hard, and we were able to spread the field out and play an exciting brand of football. And we won a state championship out there, which was a fun experience. And then one of my buddies was a administrator at GP, Gatlinburg Pittman, and was really kind of, I guess, pulling on me a little bit to take that position. And it was kind of back in East Tennessee and back kind of where I was familiar with, and took the head coaching job at Gatlinburg Pittman, stayed there 4 years. Felt like that we were able to transition from a 2A school to a 3A school, and in the last year went 10-3 and made the quarterfinals, and felt like, I guess at that point, we were closing the gap with Alcoa. The last year I was there, it was 14-13 at halftime in the quarters. This is, in 4 years ago, we had kids that it was hard to get them out of the locker room for that game, and so we really improved a lot, in terms of belief and mindset. And, maybe sometimes you feel like you've gotten a program to a point to the level that you can obtain. And after that game, our kids played their guts out. It was 14-13 at halftime. Still a one-possession game in the fourth quarter. They pulled away late. They won another state championship. And in that year, after that year, I decided to follow a friend to Mississippi. So it's a big private school in Mississippi, a tremendous football tradition, private, and just felt like at that point in my career, maybe it was something to try something different. So we go to Jackson Prep in Mississippi, great program, phenomenal players. And then after 1 year, our head coach was let go. So I was the assistant head coach, offensive coordinator. And so then I was like, well, I'm in Mississippi, don't really know anybody. And I was like, well, let's get back into Tennessee. So I took the Lewis County position this past year, and we kind of took a team that had been pretty much run heavy. We kind of transitioned to more, I guess a multiple offense. We went 11-2. Went to the quarters again, lost in the last 2 minutes of the game, and then obviously here I am at Oak Ridge. So I feel like I got a wide range of experience, but I guess for me this is kind of a destination type situation. When you look at the possibilities are going to be limitless as far as what we can do on the football field, but you're in a great academic school, and you have a strong football tradition. You have a community that supports the game. So for me, this is kind of a position that you get in and you keep for as long as you can, really.
Coach, I've always thought, and I've talked to Coach Gaddis and other coaches, it must be really tough. Like, I guess you had to do this the other day to tell your team at Lewis County that you're leaving, and you've had to do that several times.
Yeah.
That must be one of the more difficult things a coach
emotional.
has to do.
I mean, it's emotional. You get choked up. You really do. I mean, people don't understand, like, the time that you spend with kids, like, especially when you're coaching football, because there's so much work that goes into 10 guaranteed nights. That's unique. I mean, other sports, you get a lot more guaranteed games, but like, we're asking these kids, like, that you're telling that you're leaving, whatever. Like, they've been coming all summer at 7 a.m. Like, it just takes a special kid, to show that commitment. And then when you as a coach tell them that you have to move on, and you have 14 starters coming back off 11-2 team. You just kind of tell them, hey, this is just it's a tough decision, but it's nothing to do with the kids. Obviously, one of my, philosophies is the places that I've left have still been good after I've left. So I think that's good because we've obviously built, the kids know how to work, they know how to compete. We've been able to, leave money in the football account. So it's not like a train wreck situation like sometimes you hear about.
Right.
But it's tough. It's a very emotional day. It's really hard.
I'm thinking back to 2012. Was that 21-7? What was the score of the? Was it like 21-7?
It was. Yeah, we were, unfortunately for me on offense, we were 21-3 actually.
21-3.
Yeah, I just remember.
Coach is gonna get mad at me about my memory, but go ahead.
Coach may have been. I don't know where Coach was that year, but Coach Blade was the coach.
Right.
And I got a chance to know Coach Blade when he was at Oak Ridge, and they were just so sound on defense with Coach Blade. Just not a lot of weaknesses, and we came to Blankenship, and we get down there, and you see Oak Ridge start walking down the 72 steps and the railroad light blinking, and I was like, this is a little bit different now. So yeah, it was a tough game, and we started out the game pretty well. We forced a turnover. I think we were up 3-0. It was just a defensive struggle, and I think the quarterback at Oak Ridge, Ryan Hall at the time,
Right.
was a really good dual threat quarterback.
Yes, he was, very much so.
And he made some plays, and we just couldn't pull it out.
His brother was one of our better. His brother was one of our better quarterbacks, and Adrian Porter, and his daughter, Adrian Porter's daughter's on our basketball team. So that
Okay.
family is
Yeah.
really entrenched
Yeah.
in this. You said something that really got me excited when you pointed out there were 72 steps
Yeah.
at Blankenship Field. You have kind of picked up on some things when you're here, and this one of the questions that they wanted me to ask, and I'm looking at this helmet here.
Yeah.
You're not changing that helmet.
No, we're not going to change it. And Coach Gaddis has been a very good resource about some of that stuff. You know, he took me up there to Blankenship and talked about the 72 steps, and you know, and I've seen it too in person. Obviously, coached against it, and then we talked about the helmet will not change, and you know, I'm a big traditionalist, so Coach Gaddis will be a big resource on that. But I think that you know, you want to show off your tradition. I mean, you're Oak Ridge, you're a traditional program. You know, stylistically, some things may change from a scheme standpoint, but the helmet's going to stay the same.
Well, yeah, that's one thing that you have to put your own brand on your own team, because you're not Coach Cummings, you're not Coach Gaddis, you're not all the coaches that we've had before.
Yeah.
What is your philosophy, and what do you bring? What can we expect out of you as a philosophy? And I want to get into offense and defense as well.
So I guess just to break that down, I guess my overall coaching philosophy is just built on aggression and competition. I think there's a way, you know, in the high school football setting to be really, really successful. You know, you can't really pigeonhole yourself into certain things because your players change every year. So you have to be really adaptable. And I think that's one thing that, you know, I've tried to do as a coach is to be adaptable to what our kids can do. But just from a general philosophy standpoint on offense, we're going to be wide open. We want to be multiple personnel grouping, multiple formation. You know, we want to develop the quarterback position. I feel like that, you know, generally speaking, from the offenses I've coached, we've thrown the ball 24 to 30 times a game. So our quarterback generally goes over 2,000 yards throughout the season. You know, he throws for 25 plus touchdowns, and then we generally have a couple receivers that can produce as well in the throw game versus, you know, you may have two dominant receivers, you may have one, you may have four. I mean, you know, you got to figure that out. But we're not going to neglect the run game either. So we've probably be 55-45 throw to run, but we want to run the ball effective as well. And we generally develop kind of a bell cow tailback that gets 80% of the carries. And we've had running backs run for 1,700 yards, 1,500 yards, 27 touchdowns, 18 touchdowns. So I guess about the system, it's adaptable because I guess in a way you can throw the ball to win, but also run the ball to win. You don't really pigeonhole yourself, and we're just going to throw it 80 times. I mean, we're going to throw it 80% of the time. So you want to be adaptable there. Defense, we want to be aggressive, number one. We believe in defensive linemen getting off the ball. We want linebackers to run through tackles. We want secondary guys who can cover and run and hit. And I guess defensively, we're going to demand great effort, and we're going to demand 11 hats get to the ball. And we want to see this helmet, right? We want to see 11, you know, of the Cardinal helmet around the ball on every play, and highlight that in film study. You know, highlight the effort, highlight the fundamentals, you know, highlight the aggression. And then I guess on special teams, we're kind of, you know, the only thing we really do that's unique on special teams is we'll try to block a lot of punts. But, you know, like there's really nothing outlandish we'll do on special teams. We will try to come after punts, and I feel like that just from a high school coaching perspective, you can really exploit some weaknesses there and, you know, you get a cheap possession every now and then.
Let me ask you, how do you go about developing a quarterback? What does that entail?
Well, number one, the young man has to be willing to invest the after-hours time to be successful. So the ones that we've had that have been good, you know, Dresser at Dresden was a Mr. Football winner, two-time Mr. Football finalist, you know, full scholarship player. The one we had at GP ended up having a chance to go play college football. You know, the one we've had at Lewis will have a chance to be a full scholarship player. So what these guys do is number one, they've all been very good, you know, academic kids. that, there's not an issue with them as far as in the school. Their grades are really good. We spend a lot of time working on just, footwork, fundamentals, just how to, throw the football. And then, they spend a lot of time doing some stuff on their own. And then I think that, the third thing is you build an offense they can handle, and that you give them some easy decisions to make, and you get them comfortable in practice, because we want to practice at a high level. So I think if you demand that your team practices at a high level, when you get in the game, the quarterbacks and receivers are on point, because they've practiced full speed routes. But I think that's the biggest thing. It's just so much time that is outside of just the practice field, and whoever wins that job here is going to have to just be a lifer on it. And if they do that, they'll be successful.
Let me ask you a couple questions involving your staff.
Yeah.
Obviously, you haven't really had the opportunity to meet, maybe on the phone, maybe with some of your staff. I know that's a high priority with you.
Oh, yeah.
A couple things. I want to talk about that. And will you be bringing in anybody, or how is that going to work?
Well, we're still kind of going through that process. I mean, really what we've done is, I guess I've talked to every member that was on staff last year, just basically told them, hey, here's who I am, here are kind of my football philosophies. We're just going to just walk into everything with an open mind. And then we'll kind of start going through and trying to figure out how some of the pieces fit probably here in the next couple weeks.
Coach, I'm going to take one more break here. We are talking with our new head coach, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to him. I've learned a lot, actually, about you and about things we're going to be looking forward to on Friday nights. This is BBB Channel 12, and we'll be back with more with Coach Rang in a moment.
Train. Extreme conditions testing. It's hard to stop a train. Really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling.
We're always moving. Scratch that. We're always moving forward. But forward can sometimes look a little backwards. Or like circles. Or like nothing at all. But we never stop. We never stop. Because life never stops. It's hard to stop a train.
Daniel Forrester has been recognized as one of East Tennessee's leading attorneys for nearly 2 decades. Civil disputes, criminal defense, divorces, and juvenile custody cases are all part of an impressive resume. Daniel's legal experience also includes representing clients in local, state, and federal courts. A husband and a father, Daniel is a Rule 31 certified mediator who has represented hundreds of families in Chancery Court. Call Daniel Forrester Law Office at 865-457-7900 for a free consultation.
Fox Insurance Group is a local agency. We've got a great staff. We're knowledgeable. The most rewarding thing about working in insurance is taking care of customers. When they come in, a lot of times they don't know what coverages they need. They're relying on us to give them the right coverage that's going to fit their needs, but also at a competitive price. Anybody can go to any agent, or they can call any 1-800 number. But getting that right agent that's going to take care of them and be there in time of need, and that's what we're here to do.
On the train test range, you'll learn what makes our heating and cooling systems so reliable. If there's a breaking point, we'll find it. It's hard to stop a train. Really hard. Train, the most reliable for a reason.
Welcome back. Joining me is the new head coach of the Wildcats, Coach Derek Rang. He comes from us from Lewis County, which is when I was looking at your. It's kind of a strange city. Was it Hole in Wall?
Oh, yeah.
How big is that town?
Well, I mean, it's not a big town. There's probably 6,000 people in our county. But, the good thing about our county is we're near Columbia, Murray County.
Yeah.
So, Murray County probably has 150,000 people in it.
Yeah.
That's kind of a sprawling suburb of Nashville. So, but we are out, we're just outside the suburbs and, kind of a rural community, nice little community. So
I know it's a little different in the college level. If you're a high school teacher, when will you actually be coming to Oak Ridge, perhaps for a full-time basis? Do you have any idea on that?
No, we're trying to work through some of that. There's got to be I guess there's a process that goes with that we're trying to work through, and I guess maybe talking to some people from Oak Ridge to get some clarification on some stuff, and then relay that information back to where I'm at. But hopefully it's soon. We're still kind of working through some of that.
I know the players are eager to meet you. And like I said, we taped this on Thursday because we didn't want to show an interview with the coach before his guys get to meet him. So this is when we're talking, he hasn't met his players yet. But Coach, let me go back to a couple things you said about. You told me earlier in the interview that you said that you plan to call your own plays. Will you have coordinators, offensive coordinators?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll kind of have, I guess, a streamline of, who may be doing what. But, we will have, an assistant head coach and an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. We may even have a run game coordinator and pass game coordinator. But the biggest thing is that we're all working together, number one. My philosophy has always been to kind of build an offense, so it's not like you're coming in with, hey, here's how we're going to do it, here are the playbooks. We're going to kind of put one together, I guess, as a staff, and then that way all the coaches know what's going on, and they can help out with, scripting practices, and game planning and stuff like that. So it'll be more of a collaborative effort, but we will have some, we will have coordinators. So,
this is going to show my age, but you're, I think, the 9th coach that I've actually worked with, football coach here. Every coach that we work with has their strengths. As you look at yourself, what is your strength?
I mean, I think, number one, I'm very energetic, so I think that helps out. When you show passion about what you do, I think that helps out when you're upbeat and positive about it. So definitely, to me, energy is a strength. A lot of kids will say that play for you. They may graduate and be like, man, I just can't. I was just so fired up to go to practice or so fired up to play. I think organization's a strength. I feel like that we're going to have a very organized practice schedule, and that we're going to be organized in how we operate in every phase of Oak Ridge football. And I think then the competitive part of it's a strength. Sometimes, and me and Coach Gaddis were talking about this, about the hatred of losing versus the will to win.
Yeah.
And that there's been games, Coach Gaddis has coached and I've coached where you've lost and it just kills you. I mean, sometimes I think as coaches we get spoiled with the wins, because I guess just from my end of it as a head coach, we've won a lot more games than we lost. So sometimes you take that for granted, but I think just for me, the hatred of losing. I mean.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Coach Gaddis has told me for years, that he remembers the losses more than he remembers a lot of the wins, and I'm sure it's the same to you.
Yeah, I mean, and the biggest thing, too, is, like, if you lose, sometimes you lose a game and the team just has way more talent than your team. That's happened to me before, but, when you lose a game that you feel like you could have won, you just always, it just gnaws away at you. There's one or two plays that may have been the difference. And, some of those games you just won't go back and watch. I mean, that's what it was this past year. We lost in the quarterfinals. It was 26-26 in the fourth. And we lose in the last minute 50 of the game. I've still not watched the game. You just can't. It's too sickening. So
one of the things at Oak Ridge is, and you'll find out, and I guess it is in any small town, is the community involvement. I mean, we have the TV show here, and we were on the radio, and you'll do interviews and such. You'll have speaking engagements and all of those things around town. Is that something you're comfortable with?
Oh, yeah, it'll be good. I mean, I feel like that's one thing we're going to do is obviously try to get moved up here as well. Get a house in the community. which the way the housing market is right now, it's really, really hot. But definitely want to get moved up in the community, be a strong member of the community, talk to anybody who will listen. So I see there'll be a lot who want to listen. So.
It's funny you mentioned that. I got a text from a friend of mine who's a real estate agent. And she's considerably older than you, but she said, hook me up with a new coach. And I said, for a new house, like that.
Yeah.
She's a real estate agent.
Yeah.
So I told her I would say that I would mention her name to you. Maybe not on the air, but let's continue on. The last several years, we've had some improvements to Blankenship Field. We've got the new turf.
Yeah.
They've done some other things. There's a capital improvement plan, a group that's putting together to do some more things at the school in terms of which is going to require more fundraising and such. Is that something that you'll be, into? And because a lot of our press area, the dressing room area is you've seen it.
I have.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, I think I don't know what my role would be in all that, but we'll definitely support it. We'll, whoever we got to talk to, we'll talk to. But, facilities are a big part of it. You want the best of the best. But obviously Oak Ridge has tremendous facilities anyway, just from kind of going through and looking at the weight room space and looking at the locker room and Blankenship and the turf now. And I guess the Jumbotron's been there for a while. I don't know how.
It's about 4 or 5 years.
Okay, 4 or 5 years old. But but whatever we can support, whatever my small role in that can be, we'll be more than happy to do it.
One of the things you'll be involved with too is the Booster Club, and we've traditionally over the years had a great booster program. In fact, kids will say, and I'm sure it's the same way at Marable too, but our kids sometimes are spoiled with the stuff that the Booster Club does. How much of involvement we have with the boosters?
Oh, definitely. I think that we want to, to run a first-class program, you want to have nice stuff. You want to be able to take care of your kids. You want to be able to have nice equipment. You want to be able to have a nice weight facility. You want to be able to have nice practice equipment. So I think that, I don't know exactly the Booster Club dynamic as far as what they're going to do for fundraisers. Well, I know have some ideas from talking to Coach Gaddis about maybe some of the bigger projects they do. But, I think one of them's a card sale maybe as far as selling discount cards. I think they're maybe
doing
some strawberries.
Right now,
strawberries. So whatever we can do to push that, we'll push it and try to raise as much money as we can. And the good news is it all goes to use in a positive way. It's not like we're raising all this money and then we're just wasting on it. So we're trying to do stuff that will have Oak Ridge be a sustained championship program. That's what we want to do.
When you roll into town, obviously, and meet your kids, that's inevitably, and you've been at several places. You have some kids that are saying they're not quite sure. How do you win over those kids?
Yeah, kids are savvy. You can only talk about something for so much. They just got to see you do it. And you got to be honest with them. If you tell them something and don't follow through with it, they'll write you off. So I feel like for me, I'm just very upfront, very direct. Hey, here's how we're going to operate, and then they see that being done, and then they learn to, just learn to respect that, and they learn that's who I am. So, kind of with me, you kind of see with what what you see is what you get, and I feel like that's a great philosophy dealing with kids, and then. Like the kids, in which they may fight it, but they really want to be pushed. They want to work hard. They want to be successful. And I think if they see that, we as coaches are busting our butts, they understand, hey, the coaching staff's working their tail off. We need to work our tail off. And that's always been, to me, a good recipe for success.
One thing we talked about off the air a few moments ago was the academic side.
Yeah.
Oak Ridge High School is a long tradition of high academic standards.
Yeah.
And you are a math teacher,
Yeah.
I understand. Talk about how important it is for your kids to have that academic side.
Well, I think one thing that's helped me out is I'm obviously have a math degree. I'm certified in math 7 through 12. I've been teaching math classes in schools, primarily geometry and some form of statistics. So I'm a big numbers guy, and I think it helps me out. With the football coaches and they're teaching an academic class, it definitely to me helps with faculty engagement. It definitely helps. I think I've taught a lot of players, my own football players, geometry, and I think they see that different side of you because. When I teach math, I'm a lot different than when I coach football. So, you don't really get too rah-rah about, doing Pythagorean theorem or something like that. But maybe at Oak Ridge, the kids will. But
some of them will.
Some of them will,
for sure.
So it's something that I think is important to me. It's important to, we're going to check our players' grades. We're going to hold them accountable in the classroom. And if there's an issue, we're going to try to find a way to help the situation. So, but I definitely like the math part of it. I like the statistics part of it. And I think the funny thing is with the statistics now, it's been in baseball forever. As Coach Gaddis probably knows, with some of the Yankee signings or whatever, the guys that, now it's in baseball, it's launch angle and hitting home runs and, spin rates for pitchers and whatever. But in football, there really are some statistical studies they're doing that kind of determine the outcome of a game versus, when do you go for it on fourth down? Defensively, the more tackles for loss you have may dictate. So I think I like that stuff, or we like that stuff, to read about it. So, and I think I can understand it because, I spend so much time in Excel, doing all this stuff, whatever. But, yeah, I'm a big numbers guy, and I enjoy teaching math, and I feel like most schools, based off the test scores and stuff, have been pretty good at it.
Will you be really aggressive, like going for it on fourth down in your own territory and things like that? How does that?
Well, I mean, I think it's a situational thing, but like to me, it's so much of that's feel. It really is. It's about the game. How's the game going? It's about, maybe like, we're going to have like a short yardage package to where we get down under center and just try to bulldoze people off the ball. And I think if you have a back that can get that 1 yard, like we've always, I guess for me coaching, when those kids come to the sideline, let's go for it, coach, go for it, coach. Okay. Y'all better get it now, And if you give the players ownership over that, I think that can be, positive. But we're not going to be reckless. I mean, we're not going to be, faking punts in our own territory and giving a team a short field. But we will take, I guess, some calculated risk, as they say.
Coach, kids always like structure. I mean,
Yeah.
kids like structure. They like routine and such. Discipline has been a big part of our program. Talk about the discipline side and what you want and expect out of the kids on your football team.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have, obviously, some expectations. And then, to me, the biggest thing is, like, if you see something happen, you just want to correct it right then. I think when you start, obviously, like in the weight room, you want to make sure everybody's getting their sets and reps. You want to make sure that, our kids are behaving the right way. You want to make sure that, one thing that we will do punishments for is, like, I mean, we'll classify penalties. So to me, there's a difference. Like if you have 3 guys tackle a ball carrier, you're just kind of driving back, and the official may say, "Oh, that was excessive," whatever. Versus, you may have a player, get up and just, say something to an official, or maybe say something to an opposing player language-wise, and you just get a unsportsmanlike penalty. We want to eliminate that. All that does is hurt the team, and. So we kind of categorize penalties, and there will be some consequences for that. I'm still kind of from the old school that we use running as a punishment. So, sometimes there'll be some players out there with me doing some extra conditioning for various offenses. So, and we feel like that still to this day and age, kids don't like to run extra than they have to. It's kind of funny how that's like a generational thing. Nobody wants to run more than they have to, especially when they're timed on my watch. So,
Coach, I'm going to take one more break. I threw you a little bit of a curve there, Chandler, there, but I'm going to take one more break. We're going to come back and wrap it up with Coach Derek Rain, new head coach of the Wildcats. We'll be back to wrap up our show in a moment.
Train. Extreme conditions testing. It's hard to stop a train. Really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling.
We're always moving. Scratch that. We're always moving forward. But forward can sometimes look a little backwards. Or like circles. Or like nothing at all. But we never stop. We never stop because life never stops. It's hard to stop a train.
Daniel Forrester has been recognized as one of East Tennessee's leading attorneys for nearly 2 decades. Civil disputes, criminal defense, divorces, and juvenile custody cases are all part of an impressive resume. Daniel's legal experience also includes representing clients in local, state, and federal courts. A husband and a father, Daniel is a Rule 31 certified mediator who has represented hundreds of families in Chancery Court. Call Daniel Forrester Law Office at 865-457-7900 for a free consultation.
Fox Insurance Group is a local agency. We've got a great staff. We're knowledgeable. The most rewarding thing about working in insurance is taking care of customers. When they come in, a lot of times they don't know what coverages they need. They're relying on us to give them the right coverage that's going to fit their needs, but also at a competitive price. Anybody can go to any agent or they can call any 1-800 number. But getting that right agent that's going to take care of them and be there in time of need, and that's what we're here to do.
Welcome back. Thank you for watching us. The hour-long edition with the new head coach of the Wildcats, Coach Derek Ring. He's coming from Lewis County, but he won a state championship in Dresden. What was it like hosting that trophy?
Yeah.
And then what's the expectations here at Oak Ridge?
Well, man, I think that to answer your first question, it was like surreal, because we knew like we had a good group. We went the year before, we went 11-2. We lost in the quarters and had like 18 starters back. So we knew we were going to have a shot, but back then in West Tennessee, there were so many good 1A programs, like the Union Cities, the Peabodys, where Coach used to coach that.
Right.
Wayne County. I mean, you just had so many good programs that had good numbers and good football. And I guess just to get through all that, and you finally get to Cookeville at the time, we didn't really sleep the night before. I guess I didn't. And to go out there and win it, I think it just was, it's like one of those things you just never forget. It's like you just never forget the clock ticking down and like you're state champions. And then it was just so surreal. And then I kind of figured out, well, when you win a state championship, there's like really no off season, because you're having to order rings and all the shirts and all the hats and Christmas ornaments. And it just was surreal, because, I mean, just so many teams and so many different coaches haven't had a chance to do it. So it was fun for the kids and the coaches and the community and the school. Second question, the expectations here, I think we talked to Coach about, I guess, 3 or 4 of my kind of program goals, and I guess I'll just see if this kind of makes sense to like your viewers. But to me, like our first goal is to win the region championship, and here's kind of why in a little bit. So we always want to win the region championship. We always want to crush our rivals. I think to me we put a big emphasis on the rivalry games.
Do you know who our rivals are?
Well, we know we got Clinton.
Okay.
We want to beat them every year.
Yeah.
We want to beat Farragut. We want to beat Dobbins-Bennett. Now, unfortunately, Dobbins-Bennett is not on the schedule, but we want to keep Dobbins-Bennett on the schedule every year from here on out.
Good.
So we want to beat our rivals. And then what the first goal was, that allows you to host playoff games. Mm-hmm. So when you host a playoff game, to me, that's a big deal, because that increases your goal every year winning the state championship. Mm-hmm. Because if you host playoff games, we know we're going to defend Blankenship. We have to defend our home stadium, and the probabilities show that the more home playoff games you can host, the greater chance you have of getting and winning that state championship. So our overall program goal every year to me is to win a state championship. But I think those 2 previous goals help it, in a roundabout way.
Yeah, most definitely. You can just look at our playoff record over the years. I think we're 64-18 in home playoff ball games, and right at 500 on a road game. So it's a big difference.
And a lot of people are like, win the region championship. That shouldn't be a goal at Oak Ridge. But our main goal is to win the state championship. But if you win the region championship, you're going to host playoff games. And no one, like you said, no one realizes the difference that is when you're hosting playoff games. It increases your probability of getting to the semifinal round. When you get in that semifinal round, that's 48 minutes, and then you're there.
Right.
And then when you get there, I mean, you're going to have a great team, but 48 minutes again. So.
Coach, we're a little under 2 minutes to go here. Mm-hmm. We've got a very tough fan base that they expect. They probably expect that title next year. To be a coach, I guess you have to have a little thick skin, don't you?
Oh yeah, I mean that comes with the territory. I'm sure that I'll be fired many times in the stands during my tenure at Oak Ridge, and I think every coach is. So, that's just part of it. But ultimately, we want to do what's best for the program. We hope that we have a plan in place to do what's best for the program, and looking forward to it. But like I said, you just kind of do what you believe in, and you got to have thick skin with it. And ultimately, as a head football coach, it is strictly impossible, unless Coach Gaddis has some recipe, to make everybody happy. It's literally impossible to do that. So somebody will not be happy, but ultimately we're just going to work as hard as we can every day to put the best product on the field, and we feel like that's going to be very successful.
Coach, I really enjoyed our conversation here today. And I hope the fans have gotten a little better idea of who you are.
Yeah.
I know because, there's a lot of people didn't know, that maybe have heard the name but didn't know you. And I think with our show here today, we'll be doing this every Wednesday night during the course of the football season. We'll have highlights and such. And I look forward to working with you for many, many years to come.
Yeah. Well, David, we'll get to know each other pretty well, and I think you seem very knowledgeable about the product that you do. So, know it's going to be a great product, and I look forward to being a part of it.
Derek, thanks a lot. It's Derek Ring, new head coach of the Oak Ridge High School Wildcats. We appreciate you watching us. We're going to say so long, everybody. Thanks to Brad and Chandler in the back. This is David Clary. So long, everybody.